Hello everybody, and welcome to the Cat Dads Talk Kino podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, James. My pronouns are he, him, and this is my other co-host.
I'm Moon, and my pronouns are they, them.
Wahoo!
This is our Pride Month episode.
This is technically our first episode.
First episode and Pride Month episode.
And Pride Month episode, yes. So, obviously, if you're listening to this, chances are you probably actually know who we are. Because I can't imagine anybody else discovering this, but...
at least not at this stage.
Not at this stage. If you've come back, if you're from the future and you've come back to listen to the first episode, then welcome, time traveller. So we basically decided we both like films, we both like talking to different extents, and we like talking about films specifically.
Yes.
So yeah. So we figured we'd do a podcast, and we are also, as it says in our title, we are cat dads.
We are indeed.
We have our cats behind us right now. Hopefully they won't cause too much trouble. Puddy and Pumpkin.
They're our children.
They are. You might hear them squawk or do zoomies, or who knows what they'll go up to.
Or swear at us.
Swear at us, perhaps. Yeah. Maybe scratch something and then we'll shout at them.
Aww.
Who knows what will happen? I mean, it's very exciting. Anything could happen, but probably nothing exciting. So as you mentioned earlier, we are doing a Pride Month special.
Yay!
Wahoo! Technically, when this podcast has gone up, Pride Month will actually have been and gone. But
this is what we watched during Pride Month.
Yes, these are the things we watch during Pride Month, and also shouldn't every month be Pride Month?
Every month is Pride Month in our house.
There you go.
As it's Pride Month, I'm going to say to you guys, I'm proud to be a non-binary, pansexual, and just general weirdo.
For me, I don't really subscribe to any label.
No.
I guess, I'm a cis dude, but, I don't really ascribe to anything, so... Yeah.
You are you.
I am me.
You don't need to have... Not everybody feels like they want to or have to have labels, and they don't.
Exactly.
Well, if you feel like labels help you and make you feel more yourself, I like having my labels so that I know where I can find other people who are like me, and other people like me can see that, oh yeah, another non-binary person. But not everybody wants that, and that's totally fine too.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole point of Pride. Take pride in whoever you are.
Yeah.
Unless you're a map.
Yes. We do not support maps on this podcast.
No support for maps. We support all the alphabets.
All the alphabet
letters,
mafia.
but not maps.
No.
If they count.
Well, they do not count. They
Okay,
do not count.
They don't count.
No.
I do want to as well mention, because I am an old cis white dude, I don't know if I'm sort of fully up to date with all the terms and stuff, but if I get anything wrong, you'll correct me.
Yes, I will.
'Cause I'm not the best at remembering these things, but
that's okay.
I'll try my best.
You try your best, and if you say the wrong thing and somebody corrects you, then that's a learning opportunity. And then you've learned that, and you'll use the correct term in the future.
Exactly. Before we talk about our films as well, it is worth mentioning that we will be discussing our films with spoilers. Lots of spoilers. Lots of spoilers, all the spoilers, because, it's a lot easier to discuss a film when you don't have to skirt around certain things.
Yeah.
Obviously feel free to catch up on any of these films we talk about. We'll put them in the description or whatever. Before you listen to this, but whatever works for you. And also, I guess we'll throw... we did a test episode recently where we were talking about some horror films, including some pretty extreme ones.
Yeah.
So we did a content warning. We'll do that again because some of the films, with
depressing.
LGBT themes,
Very sad.
Homophobia, stuff like that. So... so we'll throw out a content warning just in case you are sensitive to any of those themes, but shall we get on with our films?
Yes.
Oh yeah, and it's also worth mentioning, because this is the internet, these are just our opinions.
Yes. If I hate a film and I shit all over it and you love it, that doesn't mean that you are wrong and I am right. I'm glad you enjoy that film. I just don't enjoy it myself, you know.
Same here. Or if we love a film and you hate it, doesn't mean,
Doesn't mean you're
doesn't
wrong.
mean
Doesn't
you're
mean
wrong.
we're wrong. It's, everybody has different opinions, and that's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, take pride in your opinions, unless they're
bigoted.
Bigoted opinions. No bigotry here. So yes, we'll start with our films. So we've got 10 films that we'll be discussing. We'll
we
try
picked
not
5
to...
each.
Yep.
We decided to pick 5 different LGBTQIA plus films, each for Pride Month, and that's what we did.
Yep. So yeah, the first one we went for was Paris is Burning. This is a 1990 American documentary directed by Jenny Livingston. And this is basically a film all about, I believe, I should have written a note, but I believe it was New York, was it? I'm pretty sure it was New York, the ball scene in New York, during obviously the late 80s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you really loved this one.
I loved this so much, in fact, that I wish that it was double the length and we got to spend more time with these wonderful people. They were so full of life and interesting to watch. Like, I feel like if this had come out now, it would have been a documentary series and we would have had like an episode per person, and I'm not gonna lie, that's what I wish it was.
Yeah.
I could spend hours and hours watching these people, watching the balls, them doing their different categories, which I just adored. But then it did get sad, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess technically it has been made into a series, that Pose show that you watched.
That's true.
So I guess that's
true.
I mean,
that
obviously,
is inspired by it.
Yeah, obviously it's based on that whole scene and that vibe,
Yeah.
but obviously, we obviously you chose this film. It's mentioned a lot on RuPaul's Drag Race.
It is, and I'm a
you should
massive
finally
RuPaul
watch
fan.
it. So yeah, I thought this film was all right. I didn't think it was bad or anything like that. I thought it was a good, entertaining documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was, like you say, well, you didn't say that it was rushed, but you said that you think it could have spent longer with stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it felt a little bit rushed, like a little bit like it jumps from one topic to another topic. And a part of me likes that because a part of me is like, it's keeping the energy high, the momentum, it's making sure you don't get too bored if it's focusing on one topic for too long. But yeah, it was kind of like there was just a few parts where I was like, oh, I'd love to spend more time with this person, love to learn more about this. But I did find, personally for me, I found the people more interesting than the ball stuff itself.
It's equal parts for me.
Yeah.
I love, oh my gosh, watching the ball was just incredible. Like, I wish I could have been alive in that time so I could have gone and witnessed this, seen these amazing people in the flesh doing, just the categories were wild and wonderful. They did obviously I've got Butch Queen, Going to School, do you remember that one? Miss Cheesecake, Executive Realness, and the realness ones were so good too.
Yeah.
So spot on. I think there was a military one and they were in this military uniform and it was just sickening. Loved it.
Sickening. Hope for anybody who doesn't watch RuPaul or isn't up with the lingo, that doesn't mean that you were nauseated literally by it.
No, it means I loved it.
It's a compliment.
Definitely. And also it made me think, watching RuPaul's Drag Race, we see them do these categories and how heavily inspired it is from the ball scene and how much they've taken from the ball scene.
Yeah.
I just love it. I just wish I could have been there.
Yeah. It was an engaging documentary, and it sort of showed that for a lot of these people, because a lot of these were poor black queer people. Not all of them were black, but poor queer people, mostly majority black or Latino, and it was a way of them to sort of escape their reality, they're trying to get by reality and be something that you know, something fantastical to them, you know, something that they want to be for a while, you know?
Yeah, like, for example, you know, the executive realness.
Yeah.
I mean, these people were not going to be given the opportunities to actually be an executive.
No.
So they went to go and they lived out that fantasy by doing that category. And they got to, you know, feel like for that night they're an executive.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of sad at the same, because you think it's so fucked that these people were not given any opportunities, and I mean still to this day it's not exactly great.
No, of course.
But at the same time it's so great to see them enjoy themselves and kind of get to live out that fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was definitely, there was that aspect to it which was sort of, you know, inspirational or, you know, uplifting to it, but obviously not all uplifting, unfortunately.
No.
I mean, these are the days of, you know, well, I mean, there's obviously still homophobia rampant, but, you know, homophobia, AIDS was, you know, HIV and AIDS was quite rampant at that time.
Yeah.
And we've got one subject in the film, Venus Extravaganza, who was a transgender woman. And it ends on like a horribly, like the whole film ends on like this horribly sad note where it's revealed that she was murdered while she was with a client, as she was a prostitute. And then
I think it was just before Christmas Day as well she was found. I don't know if that's in the documentary, if that was when I looked it up.
I don't remember that.
She was found underneath a hotel bed after being strangled by a client.
Jesus.
And I think that this really got to me. The end of this documentary, I was really, really sad because you see this beautiful, beautiful woman who has all these hopes and dreams and is talking about her future, and then it's just ripped away from her. Yeah,
it was horrible.
It's horrific.
She was quite hopeful,
Yeah,
as a subject.
she was.
But yeah, so there is obviously that depressing reality, and I liked the fact as well that it did balance the two. You know, it shows that, you know, this ball scene is awesome for these people. You know, a great way to be someone else for a little while. But obviously, there is the, you know, you can't sort of sugarcoat these things.
No.
You know, especially if you're doing a documentary. You know, there is stuff like that, but.
And to this day, trans people are murdered, particularly black trans women.
Yeah.
It makes me quite. It's sad. It's
No crying. No crying on the podcast.
I've cried enough.
you have cried a lot during the course of these 10 films.
I have. We did enjoy. There was one bit which made me laugh, where they were talking about mopping.
Oh yeah.
And they asked this guy, "So what's mopping?" And he started to explain it, and then he just kind of went, "It's stealing."
Yeah, he sort of stumbles for an answer for a while. He's like, "Well, it's when you go in a shop and you know, when you take the clothes and that you don't, it's stealing." Yeah, that was hilarious.
Was funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of humour to it. You know, a lot of these people are really funny.
Yeah.
And there's one subject as well. What was their name? Let me look at my notes. Dory and Corey, who not only had a great cat, because we are cat dads, so this film does feature a good cat. It wins a cat point. But yeah, there's like, it's not actually in the documentary, but it was found out afterwards when Dory and Corey died in like the mid-90s, I think it was, or
I'm not sure
something,
when it was,
that they had a murdered body in their trunk, a dead body
in a trunk in their closet that had been in there for how long, like 25 years or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. The theory is that this person was either an abusive partner, or they had broken into her home and she had killed them in self-defense, either way, but knew that the police were not going to take kindly to her, so she kept him in the trunk in the closet. And I don't blame her.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Probably people would go through it and just think it's like a bit of beat up leather or something. It's like, you know, they'd be like, oh, this is a good prop.
Must have been pretty horrific for the people who opened it, though, weren't they?
But yeah, it was an enjoyable film. You know, it's not one that's stuck with me particularly.
Oh, it stuck with me.
But it stuck with you.
Yeah, it did. Like, them talking about their houses. They basically, you know, made their own families, because a lot of these people were abandoned by their parents because they were queer. So chosen family, the hierarchy, the quest to be legendary. I just loved it. I loved it so much. It was a wonderful experience of a film, and I wish that I could watch more of these people. So it's a 5-star from me.
5-star film for you.
It is.
Yeah, for me it's 3 stars. It's, you know, it's good. I do like it. It's just, yeah, it wasn't the most exciting thing in the world for me personally, but
Well,
I
it
have
kinda
no
makes
major
sense.
criticisms. So
Because you like RuPaul's Drag Race, but you're not like crazy on it like I am.
yeah,
So I feel like this sort of documentary is going to appeal to the sort of people who enjoy RuPaul's Drag Race and
yeah,
all of that stuff.
yeah. So yeah, that's Paris is Burning. So that was a total of 8 out of 10, if anybody is tallying for whatever reason. Yeah, anything else to add on that film, or that sum up all your thoughts?
Yeah, that sums it all up. I loved it with all my heart.
Good. So our next film was Hedwig and the Angry Inch. This is a 2001 American musical comedy drama written and directed by and starring John Cameron Mitchell as the titular Hedwig, who is a lead singer, a transgender lead singer of the band Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yes.
And basically just their life story, and yeah, I mean there's not necessarily a huge amount of plot, but then there's a lot of character and a lot of things happen.
Yeah, it's all about Hedwig and her life and the shit that she's been through, and I loved it so much.
It was great. I really liked it. I was very apprehensive at first because musicals are not my forte. I'm not usually very excited for musicals and stuff, but as soon as we heard the first song I was like, okay, this is a good song. I actually like this. It was very sort of, I think the first song was very Doorsy, and then there was a second song and it was sounded like a David Bowie song, and I was like, hang on, do I love these songs? And yeah, it turned out I loved all the songs. You know, they were all like catered, they were more in the rock sort of punk realm, so there was a country song. Yeah, there's a country song
which was great too.
So that appealed more to me than most sort of stagey musical dance numbers. Not that there's anything wrong with that, just not my vibe personally.
I love the soundtrack so much that I don't even know how many times I've listened to it since we watched it, but it's been a lot.
You have listened to it a lot.
I
have heard it coming from the other room.
So good. I love it so much. I loved Hedwig. I thought she was such an interesting character. Had been through so many like awful things, really. You know, with her bottom surgery gone wrong, which is why she's called Hedwig and the Angry Inch, because all she's been left with is an angry inch.
Yeah.
And obviously how she got married, and then he left her for a younger boy, and then she fell in love with another guy who then stole all her songs and made an album and gave her no credit. And
yeah, there's like so much stuff in this film that happened. It's like it's got this real sort of punk rock attitude to it, which I love. You know, like the film will just randomly burst into animation, flashbacks, you know, breaking the fourth wall. It's just kind of one of those throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And for me, it kind of all worked, and even if it didn't all work, I'd still be like, I just love the spirit of this film. It's just so fun and in your face and crazy, and
it felt like awesome. A lot of love went into it too.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I think we both said that it kind of, I don't know if you're listening, if you've seen Velvet Goldmine, but it gave us kind of Velvet Goldmine vibes.
Yes, it was quite similar to Velvet. I think they came out same year. Maybe, I know, they might have been a few different years apart. But yeah, it's quite similar to Velvet Goldmine, although this film I prefer to Velvet Goldmine personally. But so Sophie's choice. Hedwig or Goldmine?
Oh, I love Velvet Goldmine, but I do think Hedwig is better because the soundtrack is so good. Yeah,
the soundtrack is great. I think, you know, like for me, it kept subverting my expectations. So there was a bit where this seemingly a ballad was about to start up, and you know there was that inner musical disliker of me, part of me just like, oh no, not a ballad, don't do a ballad, and then it like flips and it becomes this rocking badass song, and then by the time there are actual ballads, it won me over so much. By that point I loved them. Yay! You know, like it's like, and there's so many themes to it as well, you know, like there's a lot of historical stuff about, you know,
about the
Berlin Wall, like how he comes from East Germany, and they, sorry.
She.
She, sorry. She, it's because when we see
You're
the
thinking of the
flashbacks,
actor. No?
it's because when we see the flashbacks, they're a little boy to begin with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, she, and it's like sort of this, you know, the Berlin Wall sort of symbolising how, you know, our personalities are often split two ways and all this sort of stuff, you know. It's like, you know, Hedwig's struggling to be herself, but also, you know,
I'm struggling with everything she's been through, which has made her incredibly angry.
Exactly.
At the point when we get to know her in the film, she's very, very angry about everything that's happened to her.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. I would be angry too.
Yeah.
But by the end, she manages to release that anger and start again.
And then there's like her guitarist who is her
husband.
Yeah, who is her husband, who is visually male, but they actually inside, you know, they identify as female, and you know Hedwig is holding her back, you know, not letting her be who she really is, because you need to be my husband so that we can have a visa and all this kind of stuff. And you know, at the end, she sets her free.
It's really beautiful. Yeah,
it's a very beautiful film. You know, lots of stuff at the end about like spiritual rebirth and all that kind of stuff.
And I love that shit.
I always love themes like that. Yeah, it's like we're so pretentious. We love a bit of spiritual rebirth.
We do.
But yeah, this was a great film. Just really fun, but also clever and audacious.
Yeah.
And, very memorable.
Another
great
one
songs.
that I absolutely adored. 5 stars all the way.
5 stars.
I'd give it 6. If I give it, it's 5.
Yeah, and for me, as well. Much to my own surprise, this was a 5-star film as well. Yeah, I loved this. It was, like I say, just a really entertaining, punk rock in your face, fun film, but actually also genuinely by the end moving, and you know, it's awesome.
Right.
So that's a total of 10 out of 10.
10. Our first 10.
Most importantly, though, there is no cat point for this film.
No cats.
No cats. So
sadly.
0 out of 10.
I feel like Hedwig seemed like she would be a cat person.
Maybe.
She'll get a cat.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Her character who doesn't
in the
actually
sequel.
exist.
So our next film is possibly one of the most well-known LGBT films of all time.
Yeah.
Brokeback Mountain. So this is a 2005 American romantic drama directed by Ang Lee, and I think you know, Brokeback Mountain in itself is, everybody knows the name of the film, even if they haven't seen it. Everybody knows the name.
Everyone knows, you know, who starred in it. You know, everybody. When it came out, it was such a massive thing.
It was huge. I feel like it's probably, at least when it came out, probably the biggest sort of most mainstream sort of film to deal explicitly with queer themes at that time, I'd say. You know, obviously a lot of people called it the gay cowboy movie, which, you know, it's very undermining it, because yes, there are cowboys, yes, they are gay, but there's so much more to the film than that. You know, it's like, that it just feels like a little bit like, you know, watch the film.
This was another film that made me cry.
You cried a lot, yeah.
I've seen this film many times over the years, and it makes me cry every single time. But I hadn't seen it since we'd been together.
We had seen it once, but it was a long time ago.
Okay, well, I don't remember, but Watching it now and seeing how long they were together, like, didn't they say they kept this up for like 20 years?
I believe it's 20
being able to
years,
see each other once or twice, maybe 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And that really got to me. I was thinking, imagine if we were living like that, how miserable we would be if we had to pretend that we weren't into each other, we had to marry other people basically for our own safety, and live this lie that we only got to give up a few times a year.
Yeah.
And
you really feel for them, you know, like even when, and I think the thing is they're so human, you know, they're not, you know, sometimes they do horrible things, you know, there's that bit where Heath Ledger, you know, nearly hits his wife and stuff, you know, and you can't defend him, but at the same time, you really feel for them because of this internal struggle that they've got.
We feel for all of them.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's Jack and Ennis and the wives you feel for, the children involved. It's just miserable.
Yeah.
But it is so incredible and important, I think.
Oh yeah, it's a very important film. And I think as well, like, we do have a degree of looking at things slightly differently, because I think to a degree it's a very beautiful film about this, you know, such a deep love between these two people, but it's also tragic, you know.
Yeah.
It is very sad. Look like you're gonna cry. Don't cry.
It is so sad for me.
Yeah.
Their love is so beautiful. And even at the beginning when they first meet and just...
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is like there's so much, like as soon as they meet you get that like sort of sexual romantic tension immediately, and it just feels so genuine.
Yeah, it does.
It's so like there's that bit where they haven't seen each other for like a few years or something, and they see each other for the first time, and Heath Ledger like just grabs Jake Gyllenhaal and just kisses him, and it's like tender, but also like not rough, but in that sort of, you know, I couldn't hold this in, I need to get this all out sort of way.
And his wife sees that, isn't it?
Yeah, and Jack Nasty.
Yeah, Ennis's wife sees, and that is it's so strange because this film is played, it's so serious, but then there's that line which you can't help but laugh at because it sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah, the bit where Michelle Williams, who plays Heath Ledger's wife, she's like, "Oh, I know who you're seeing," something like, "I know who you're seeing. It's Jack Twist, Jack Nasty." And it makes us laugh every time, even though it shouldn't, because it's really sad.
But it's the bit where she talks about, because obviously he went on fishing trips.
Oh yeah, fishing.
And she put a little note on the end of his fishing line saying that she loved him and please bring her and the girls home some fish. And when he got back, she checked the fishing rod and it was still there. He hadn't done any fishing.
No. There was another type of rod in use, but not a fishing rod.
Ew.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. As soon as you said rod, I was like, I have to make some sort of penis joke here.
There is one bit that I've just popped into my head that I do really enjoy, and it's got nothing to do with any of the queer themes.
Yep.
But it's when they're having that, is it Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah, yeah.
And Jack's wife is like turning the TV off for their kid to eat their dinner, and her dad turns it back on and Jack just loses his shit and sticks up for his wife and it's like, yes, such a proud
I think that's the
moment.
thing, there's like so much great stuff in this film, like all the scenes are just, you know, like in of themselves just great scenes, you know. You know, so even when it's like, you know, just dealing with, you know, them and their wives, like the bit where Ennis, they go to see some fireworks with his wife and his kids, and there's these men like talking inappropriately behind them, and he's like, "You better shut up and stop talking like that," and they're like, "Oh what?" And he just kicks one of them in the face with the fireworks in the background. It's perfect.
It is epic. Like that is, I mean, just chef's kiss.
It like out actions most action movies. Just that one shot of him kicking this guy in the face. It's incredible. But yeah, it's just filled with like a lot of, it's just a great film. It's beautifully photographed. It's the music, that iconic, I don't know if it's a banjo. I think it's just an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's just really sort of makes your heart ache whilst you're watching it. The film just perfectly visually and audibly surmises their relationship. Like tender and loving, but also it just can't be.
And of course there's the ending when obviously Jack is murdered, and then we were talking about the phone call between Ennis and Jack's wife. So we were trying to figure out whether she knew or not, and then what did you find out? They filmed it 2 different ways?
Yeah, Anne Hathaway has a scene at the end, and she's Jack's wife, and she makes a phone call to Heath Ledger's character to explain about her husband had died, and we were trying to figure out, is she sad? Is she angry? Does she know who Heath Ledger's character is? Does she know that they were having an affair? All that kind of stuff. And we weren't sure. And I was reading some trivia about the film, and it said that they actually filmed it 2 ways. They filmed it with one take of her knowing what was going on and knowing who Heath Ledger's character was. And then another of her just having no idea and just, explaining what happened to him. And then what they did in the actual final film is they cut between those 2 takes. So like every time it cuts back and forth between Heath Ledger and Anne Hathaway, it's from a different take. So that's and Anne Hathaway says herself she doesn't know what the definitive answer is. The director and the writer might, but nobody else does. So
that phone call is very interesting.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and everyone's so good in this film as well. Yeah.
It's a great cast.
Yeah, it's got a crazy cast. You got Heath Ledger, Jake Gyllenhaal, Michelle Williams, Anne Hathaway, Randy Quaid, Linda Cardellini, Anna Faris, David Harbour, Kate Mara. I wrote these all down because I was like, there's so many recognisable faces in this cast. It's crazy.
So my star rating for this is 5 stars.
Yeah, I give it a 5 star as well, because it's beautiful and amazing and sad and powerful.
Very sad.
Yeah.
So next film is one that you don't like that much.
Spoilers? Spoiler alert. This is all spoilers. This is where we're going to start getting into controversial territory where I may be lynched to the ends of the earth.
We're gonna have a fight.
Yeah, we're gonna have a fight. Yeah, I might be lynched by my own my own spouse, and then lynched by listeners of this podcast. So our next film is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is a 2019 French historical romantic drama directed by, apologies if I get the pronunciation of this incorrect, Céline Sciamma, I think. I'm not certain on the pronunciation, but...
Yeah, I can't help you with that.
Yeah. Well, you know French. I don't know any French.
I do not know French.
You know a bit of French.
Very small amount.
Okay. I'll let you off.
So this film is essentially about a woman who's been employed by another woman's mother to paint her portrait without her realising. So she spends time with this woman and observes her in order to paint her.
Yeah.
And they fall in love. And it's beautiful. And again, it's bloody sad.
They always are.
Bloody horrible. The ending of this film is horrendous.
Don't worry, we talk about some happy films at some point.
We do. This film kind of, if anybody listening has read The Well of Loneliness, the ending kind of reminded me of that book, and that book broke my heart into a million pieces. So, but it's so... Their love is so tender and beautiful, and you don't get it at all. I
just don't get it. No, I'm very sorry. I think this is a very, very well made film.
It's
like
beautiful.
From a technical perspective, it's beautifully photographed. Again, the performances are all good. I guess, I mean, I'll come back to that in a minute.
Or-
I think they are good, but it comes down to my primary issue with the film. But yeah, it looks beautiful. It's got some, you know, fantastic shot compositions and all this kind of stuff. The lighting's really nice, you know, like you get loads of paintings in this film because she's a painter.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're beautiful, and you, like, there are scenes where you just watch her paint, and it's just, you know, those are actually, for me, some of the most compelling parts. I really like just watching her paint these beautiful pictures. But for me, I just don't get much of the chemistry. I don't see it. I just don't get it.
Wild.
I know.
Wild.
For me,
It's so just the way they look at each other, and from the, like, almost from the start when they first see each other, and it's just, there's like this something there, like this little flame.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, I love it. It reminds me of a friend of mine who I had a crush on in high school, who also had a crush on me, and we were both very like that.
Yeah.
And but then it never got any further. It was like that kind of how they are in the beginning, how they obviously like each other, but it's like, do we do anything about this? No.
Yeah.
And then the mother goes away, and they do something about it.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can totally see, you know, why people like this film. I guess I can't quite see why it's as loved as it is, but at the same time, you know, I guess it's not a film that speaks to me personally on any level, I guess. I don't know. For me, there's just something lacking. It just doesn't get me emotional. But I will say that I do think the final couple of scenes are amazing. Like, they are brilliant, heartbreaking scenes in of themselves, you know. And I wish the whole film had... I feel like the whole film is almost subtle to a fault. And then
I disagree.
At the end, it kind of lets go of the subtlety a bit and is like a bit more nakedly emotional. And yeah, I liked it more when it was being nakedly emotional as opposed to... I mean, I say subtle to a fault, but then there's a scene where one of them fingers the other's armpits, so...
They're putting these weird drugs on their armpits, aren't they?
It's not subtle at all.
And they have hairy armpits.
They do have hairy armpits.
Because so often in like historical films, period dramas, whatever, there are these women who don't have any body hair, and you're like, well, that's not realistic. So them having armpit hair, plus I love armpit hair, so... Yeah,
there's a lot of good scenes in the film. Like, I like the bonfire scene where these women just start singing this song, and it's great. There's like these little bits where you see a ghost every now and again, and it's like, you know, signifying this sort of...
It's like a ghost of the future.
Yeah, this looming spectre of an impossible future, and, you know, stuff like that. There's the housemaid who is having an abortion, you know,
and they help her through that. They basically become her two mums, and help her through the abortion. There's also, they tell that story.
Oh yeah,
about the man and his wife has died, kind of prematurely, I think. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
and he makes a deal with whatever deity.
Is it Sisyphus?
I can't
Not
remember.
The deity, but yeah.
But to have his wife back, and the whole thing is they say, okay, yes, you can have her back, but you have to travel with her all this way, walking in front, and you cannot look back at her until you get there. And they're travelling and travelling and travelling, and then he looks back and she's gone. She is ripped back to the underworld or whatever.
Yeah.
And they talk about how he just couldn't help but look because he loved her so much.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so sweet, and it's like them, isn't it?
Exactly. Which comes back to and alludes to many times towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I do think it's a good film. It's just not a film that does anything for me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, like I can appreciate the intent behind the film. I can appreciate the filmmaking. I can appreciate what people do see in it, but for me, I do honestly find it a bit of a slog. Like I struggle getting, because this is the second time we've watched it, and I was like, okay, maybe a second time it will make more sense to me, but I just found myself like, okay.
I just find them so beautiful to watch and so touching.
Yeah.
And they're so sweet with each other, and I love them. I think they're so lovely, and it's so sad that one of them is being forced to go and marry somebody in Milan, and they couldn't just be together, because I'm like, I just want you to be together. They essentially only get a few days together, and they're talking about their regrets of not acting on their love sooner because they've had such little time. And before they are split up again, the one who's getting married, I can't remember their names because I'm terrible.
Marianne and Eloise. Eloise is the one getting married.
Okay, so Eloise gets Marianne to paint a self-portrait in her book on page 28, and years later, I've forgotten the name of the other one again. Marianne sees her in a portrait at an art gallery, and she's there with her children from this marriage, but she's got the book slightly open to show the page number, and it's page 28, and it's just, oh god. And you're just like, even now you still love her. It was so, oh my god, I just don't understand how you don't. It just makes me want to cry just thinking about it. And the very end is just, it's sad, but it's also beautiful. Yeah. Because I've got to remember the names. Marianne sees Eloise. Yes. Is that her name? Eloise? At a concert where there's like an orchestra playing music that she played to her on the piano. And you see her go through these emotions of like happiness and sadness, and it's her reliving their relationship in her head, and how sad it is that they can't just be together. It just makes me feel,
Oh, stop crying. No crying. But yeah, ultimately there is no cat in this film, so it's an awful film. Same with Brokeback Mountain, actually. We take back our 5 stars because there was no cats in that. For you, so you...
This is another 5-star for me. And yes, I have given all 5 stars so far, but I'm not normally this
get
easy
used to hearing them.
I guess I just love queer cinema, so...
You do. For me, it's a 3 out of 5, like I say. I do think it's a film I appreciate rather than enjoy, if that makes any sense. Like, I can respect it, but I just don't really get a huge amount out of it. But I also don't dislike it. I think there are some very good scenes, and I think, it is a very good piece of filmmaking in of itself.
Yeah. Ignore him, he's wrong. Watch it.
Yeah, ignore me, I'm wrong. Our next film, which caused a few debates before we watched it.
Yeah, because I didn't remember any LGBT themes. Yeah. Because it'd been so long since I'd seen it, and then when you watch it, you're like, well, of course.
So our next film is Let the Right One In. This is a 2008 Swedish romantic horror, directed by Thomas Alfredson. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. When it comes to the names of foreign directors, I tend to, I'm taking a shot in the dark sometimes. But we kind of had a little bit of a debate first, because I was thinking about films films I love that I hadn't seen in a long time, and I was like, what about Let the Right One In? And you were like, no.
I was like, how is that? I was just thinking, it's just vampires. Yeah. What are you on about?
And I was like, no, it's because one of the main characters, the vampire, Eli or Ellie, I think they pronounce it Ellie, is non-binary, yeah. And I looked up a list, and you don't get any more official than this. I looked up a list on Wikipedia of LGBT films, and it was listed on there.
Well, there you go.
If Wikipedia says it, it's true. This is an amazing film.
Oh yeah, it is.
I absolutely love this film. Like I say, it was one I hadn't seen in a long time, and thought, I genuinely want to watch it again as a great film.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, obviously, if there are themes to unpack or anything, then we can look into that. But yeah, it's like a beautiful little quasi love story between. So there's Oscar, who's a little Swedish boy. I think he's probably like about 12 or something.
Yeah, he's probably 11 or 12.
There's this
Ely.
Yeah, and Ely.
Oscar
So
and Ely.
Ely is
non-binary vampire.
Non-binary vampire.
Yeah.
Not non-binary.
He's living in the body of like a 11 or 12-year-old.
Yeah, and moves in next door to Oscar, and Oscar's lonely, Oscar's bullied.
Yeah,
Oscar's got these
kind of neglected at home.
Neglected by his dad, who he rarely sees.
He's very vulnerable.
He's got these kind of...
Vulnerable. He looks
He's
vulnerable
super vulnerable,
to see him,
yeah. He's
know?
like skinny and meek.
Yeah.
He's got these sort
very pale
psychopathic tendencies.
Yes.
Not because he wants to kind of, you know, make these bullies pay for what they've done.
Yeah.
And yeah, when Ellie moves in next door, and you know, he'll be outside on the climbing frame in the snow, you know, it's freezing cold, he'll be on his Rubik's Cube, and Ellie will come out barefoot and start talking to him. And yeah, it's just a beautiful sort of weird love story. I say quasi love story because I see it as romantic, but I guess some people might see it as purely a slave and master dynamic of some sort.
Well, I don't know whether I see it as...
Excuse me.
It's interesting because obviously I feel like when we first meet Ely, they have an older man who is going out and killing for them so that they can get blood safely. And I feel like this is obviously what Ely has done over the many, many years of being a vampire, is you get somebody, you get them to go and do the killing for you until they get too old or they die, and then you move on to somebody else. But that's not to mean that their relationship with Oscar isn't special, because it is. I believe that probably all of Eli's relationships are special. Because if you're going to spend that much time with somebody, they have to be somebody who you like
have to at least
and
tolerate
who you care for.
Yeah.
But what we primarily see is them and Oscar.
Yeah.
And watching this film as a now open, non-binary person was wonderful. There was a particular quote that I wrote down because it really struck me, and it was when Ely said to Oscar, "Would you still like me if I wasn't a girl?"
Yeah.
And it reminded me of coming out to you.
Yeah.
Probably it's like a year and a half ago now, something like that, maybe a bit more than that. You know, and it's that, will you still like me if I'm not what you think I am? Will you still like me if I'm not a girl? And it just really, it gave me the feels that did. And they are incredibly sweet.
Yeah. And
Ely does help him in many, many ways.
Oh yeah.
They give him courage and a bit more confidence and a bit more happiness.
Love and care.
Yeah, somebody who cares, somebody who will listen to him, which is not something that he's getting elsewhere.
And best of all, Ely fucks up those bullies good and proper.
Yes, which is very satisfying. I also very much enjoy when Oscar hits one of the bullies with the big stick. They're threatening to put him in like, what is it? There's ice and water.
Like a frozen lake. Yeah.
They're threatening to put him in a hole in the ice. And he has a big stick and he whacks him in the head with it, and he bloody deserved it.
He sure does. He's such an evil little shit.
Yes.
And obviously these bullying scenes like are so harrowing. You know, it's always horrible seeing like vulnerable children being, you know, abused and stuff. You know, so you know when you actually get these scenes of the comeuppance for the bullies, it's so satisfying.
It is.
But yeah, as well, one of the things I noted about this film is that you know, when you hear romantic vampire story, you think of something like
Twilight.
You know, and you got things like that where it's just ridiculous. It totally romanticizes, you know, this I can live forever and I'm 237 years old and you're a 16-year-old and there's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, and it's awesome because we go out and we only kill animals. I don't need to kill humans, you know. And yeah, it's totally, I mean, obviously this came out, well, I think this came out before Twilight. But yeah, this doesn't romanticize it at all. It's romantic without making that an aspect of like what is romanticized, you know, because it shows the victims of the vampirism, you know, like there's extended scenes where it will just peer into their lives for a bit as somebody's being turned into a vampire,
well, like there's that part
or the grieving husband of a woman who is turned into a vampire and stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, the part that, do you remember there were like two friends coming home from the pub?
Yeah.
And they said to each other, what did they say?
They said,
it was so...
thank you for a night of friendship and merriment.
And then they have a hug.
They have a hug.
And I thought, that's so touching.
Yeah.
And then one of them walks off and gets killed.
And gets killed, yeah.
But I like that because it's not like... You know, there are lots of films where there are loads of people who get killed, but you don't get any time with them.
Yeah.
So you don't feel sad. You're just like, okay, that's just another body for the body count.
Yeah.
But when you see a little bit into these people's lives first, it makes it so much more real.
Yeah, I mean, there's even like the scene with the bullies at the end where, you know, they're trying to basically drown Oscar, and then Ellie comes along and fucking tears them to bits.
Yeah.
Except one, the one who doesn't actively want to do any of it,
Yeah.
and is just basically coerced into it. But yeah, even then, you see like one of the bullies, he's looking up at his old, like the main bully is looking up at his older brother with like, you're going too far as this guy's drowning Oscar. And you can, again, it just tells you so much about these characters with just literally like 3 or 4 seconds of, you know, just an expression of him going, you know, this is too much, you know. So,
which shows you where he's getting it from.
Exactly.
You know, he's probably suffering at home from his brother. His brother may have suffered from abuse from parents.
Yeah.
They might both suffer from abuse from parents.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, children who do these horrible things don't just do them because they're evil children.
Exactly.
They have been through something terrible, and that's why they act that way.
Yeah. Exactly. Same with like Oscar at the beginning when he's, you know, like looking in the mirror and he's got a knife and he's thrusting it and just like, you know, I'll stab you and saying shit like that. You know, it's like, you know, is this kid a psychopath? Has he been made into a psychopath by these people? Or is it just literally out of a place of, this is one of the few times when he can feel, you know, strong, is when he's on his own with a knife, you know, making this character, you know. It's just, it's a very sad sort of like, because the film really perfectly conveys this sense of loneliness and isolationism and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's, just a really beautiful film. And, you know, I love Oscar and Ellie, you know, and their little non-binary relationship. You know, Oscar doesn't care.
Non-binary relationship. I do
I
love
how
the fact
Oscar doesn't
is
care.
Completely unfazed by it. Like, there's a point where Oscar says, do you want to go steady? And Ellie's like, well, what does that mean?
No, he says, like, do you want to be my girlfriend?
Yeah, he says that after Ellie asks what it means, and then Ellie's like, I told you I'm not a girl, and he's like, okay, so do you want to go steady or not?
Yeah.
And it's so touching, and they're very, very cute.
And we see a glimpse later, like, she's getting changed into some non-bloody clothes after she's just feasted on someone. Oh no, it wasn't after she feasted on someone, it's after she walked in the house without him giving her express permission, and she starts bleeding out of like every orifice. It's pretty horrific.
Well, you're not allowed to enter somebody else's home without permission if you're a vampire, so
exactly,
that's what happens.
Vampire law. But yeah, and like he like glances, because I guess he's curious. He's like, well, they say, you know, they're not a girl. What are they? And there's like this like castrated stump.
But there's like nothing, it's just a wound.
Yeah, it's just like a wound. And apparently in the book this film is based off of, like Ellie was previously like a 12-year-old boy who was castrated and made into a vampire. but I haven't read the book. I've heard that it goes a bit more in depth into the sort of the themes of the non-binary stuff and whatnot.
I need to read it.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I need to read it as well because I love this film.
Yeah.
And also worth noting that this film has a lot of cats in it.
Oh my god, so many cats.
There's a man who has tons of cats.
That woman, and it's
They turn into CGI cats and attack a woman who's been recently vampirised.
Yes. Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, the CGI is a little dodgy, but at the same time, it's like, it's not a big Hollywood film.
Yeah.
You know, what do you expect? So yeah, this is, I love this film. I think it's haunting and romantic and, you know, just a beautiful film, and also, you know, has some awesome scenes of violence against, you know, 12-year-old bullies as well. so for me, it's like a 5-star film.
Oh yeah, it's 5 stars, definitely.
Well, you're giving it 5 stars?
Yeah.
I cannot believe you're giving another film 5 stars here. That is shocking. Okay, so moving swiftly on, and don't worry, we're finally into some more uplifting territory now. Our next film is The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which is a 1994 Australian road comedy, directed and written, I believe, as well by, I'm going to assume it's Stephen Elliott, or perhaps Stephen Elliott, but yeah, this is a great film about 3 drag queens basically on the road again.
Travelling to go and see one of their ex-wives.
Yes.
And their child.
Yeah.
This one I have to give a shout out to my Uncle Sean if you're listening to this. He's the reason why I watched this movie in the first place. To be honest, he's the reason why I probably watched quite a lot of the queer movies that I've seen.
Yeah, that's true. You've seen a lot.
So yes, thank you, Sean. I love this movie. It's so especially after all the miserable films we watched.
Yeah.
To watch something that feels like a warm hug.
Yeah.
Was lovely.
If you're wondering why we watched so many miserable films in a row, we wrote our list of films and we randomised it. And you're a stickler to the randomisation. You're like, yeah. I'm like, well, you know, we've watched a lot of miserable films in a row. How about we watch this instead? And you're like, no, we've got to do it. We've got to do it in the order given.
This is the list.
But yes, we're finally into the territory of some uplifting films. But yeah, it's just a lovely film. I mean, it's got its serious moments. It's got its moments dealing with, you know, homophobia, child abuse even, but even then, like, that scene is played for laughs.
Yeah,
not that it's laughing at the child abuse, but the way that
it's laughing at the way he handled
it. Kid trapping his
uncle's
balls in a drain.
Yeah.
In the bath
It's
plug. Felicia, yes, played by Guy Pearce.
We love Felicia.
I think, that's one of the first things I always find crazy about this film is how the cast, you've got Hugo Weaving, Guy Pearce and Terence Stamp, and all these people, you know, this is an Australian film, you know, so you've got Hugo Weaving and Guy Pearce doing their Australian accents, which wasn't something I was used to, because I'm used to seeing them in, you know, like Captain America or Iron Man 3 or bloody other stuff, whatever they're in. I can't think right now. The Matrix, there we go. Hugo Weaving's in The Matrix and Lord of the Rings, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see such recognisable faces when they were younger and in these, like, you know, such vibrant, flamboyant roles.
Oh, yes.
And Terence Stamp, who you mainly know as the butler in the Haunted Mansion. I mainly remember him.
He's fantastic in this film.
Well, I mainly remember him as General Zod in Superman 2, which came out like 1980. So to see him, in this role where he's like this aged, grumpy but also warm and profound and wise woman, it's just great.
And she's my favourite character, Bernadette. Yeah. She is wonderful, and she comes out with some of the best reads in the film.
Yeah.
I wrote down
She's vicious.
Probably my favourite one, which was light your tampon and blow your box apart. It's the only bang you're gonna get. That was incredible.
The library is closed.
Bernadette is amazing.
Yeah.
And then she meets Bob.
Oh yeah, Bob,
Bernadette
who's
and Bob. Oh.
like Bob is like a kind of, you know, such a straight as you like kind of Australian bloke who likes to drink beers with his buddies and all that stuff, and he's just smitten with Bernadette. Like, you know, he doesn't judge them for their lifestyles or, you know, their sexualities or anything like that. Yeah, he thinks it's great. He does also have possibly a slightly problematic element, but it's quite enjoyable regardless.
Like, we're going to start with that?
Yeah, I'm going on to it. I'm going on to Cynthia. So Bob's wife, Cynthia, who is, I think, she
Thai?
Thailand, yeah, Thai, yeah. Who is a Thai prostitute who he... Ex-prostitute, sorry. Who he got married one drunken night with.
Yeah, and then had to bring her home.
Yeah.
And she's been banned from the local bar.
Yeah.
Because whenever she goes there, she puts on a show where she shoots ping pong balls out of her nun. Out of her nun.
She sure does.
Which we watched. This is funny, but also, is this a bit racist?
It's a bit racist. It's definitely a bit
it's definitely
racist.
playing off a stereotype, isn't it?
Yeah.
But she's so fabulous.
But it is funny.
I
And
love her.
again, her performance, I can't remember the name of the actress, I forgot to write it down. Here we go. Julie Cortez is just so over the top.
Yeah.
It is amusing.
And she looks like she's having a great time.
It is slightly weird to me because obviously there is that element to it which is kind of racist. But earlier in the film, there's the bit where the drag queens, their bus, the titular Priscilla, breaks down, and they meet up with these Aboriginal people in the desert who like take them in and, you know, like let them sing and dance to them and stuff like that.
They perform their drag show for them and one of them gets involved. It's
and
great.
there's such a nice scene, you know, about it sort of, you know, not you know, like not being prejudiced and bigotry is bad and all that kind of stuff. You know, they had presumptions that the Aboriginal folk would probably, you know, look down on them for their lifestyle. But they don't, you know, and so it is a bit weird that there's a slightly racist stuff in there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's all in the name of fun for the most part.
Oh my God.
It's funny.
I just looked down at my notes and I saw 2 words.
Abaturd. I just looked at the same words.
Do you want to explain?
I think you can do it more justice.
Felicia is a very intense ABBA fan.
One way of putting it.
And when seeing them in concert, I think she said she got backstage and one of the members of ABBA was coming out of the toilet. She went in afterwards and they'd left a little present behind that she took and has preserved.
Yep.
And keeps in a jar. Oh my God, I love Felicia.
Felicia is a one.
Oh, when
she's
on the roof of Priscilla with like the costume that's
Miming
like
opera.
in the wind and amazing. Also the looks that are served in this film are insane.
Yeah, it's
the wigs, my God.
It's a very visually, you know, the colour palette is very colourful and vibrant, you know, so
in contrast to the desert.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, even then you got, I mean, the desert is one of the most visually striking things because you've got blue and orange, which is opposites, exactly. But yeah, so it's just such a beautiful film, like looking film as well, you know. It's as vibrant as the personalities contained within.
Yeah. And when they get there to Mitzi's ex-wife's hotel, she's lovely as well, and they perform there, and it's incredible. It's one song, but with like how many costume changes?
An impossible amount of costume.
So many costume changes, and everyone is fantastic, and it's excellent. And the way that everybody kind of reacts at the end, like they're getting this mediocre applause, but then the ex-wife and Mitzi's son are like cheering him on. I think he passes out at that point, though, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
From the shock of his son seeing him in drag.
Yeah, and his son doesn't care, and it has this beautiful message, you know, that bigotry is a learned thing. You know, and it's like, you know, this son isn't bigoted because he's grown up around, you know, a mother who...
A very good mum.
Yeah, who has taught him not to be that way, you know, who's taught him that, you know, everyone's equal. So, yeah, it's just...
Whereas he shocks Mitzi a lot, I think, because Mitzi kind of goes from being, like, really open about who they are to when they meet their son, being kind of closed and not wanting to come across as too flamboyant. Yeah. And then the son says to him, "Oh, will you have a boyfriend when we go back to wherever?" Yeah. And basically just doesn't give a shit about any of that stuff. And you see Mitzi kind of relax and be like, "Oh my gosh, maybe I can be myself with my own son." Yeah. And I think as well because even now, there are people who believe that LGBT people and themes should not be around children, that it's not child appropriate, which is complete bollocks. And especially as children have heterosexuality shoved down their throats from the moment they're born. But oh no, we can't have two men holding hands in an advert, but we can have a man and a woman making out in a film that children can watch. Yeah. So it's almost like he feels that way because he's got this son and he's like, oh no, I can't expose him to this. Yeah. But
the son doesn't care.
Doesn't care because he's got a wonderful mum who did the right job in bringing him up. Yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, great film. A lot of fun, you know, good messages mostly, you know. Yeah, for you, I'm going to guess what you'll give this film.
For shame.
Is it a 5-star film?
It is a 5-star film. I could watch this film over and over and over and over again. Yeah. It's just, it makes me feel happy and warm.
Yeah. For me, it's 4.5 stars. I've got for me, it feels a little... It's one of those weird films that isn't that long, but it feels really long to me.
I feel the opposite.
And I feel it's perhaps because there's not sort of much of a... It's quite sort of... It's a very... what's the word I'm looking for? Very episodic film, you know, like... Most of the scenes don't necessarily lead up to the next scene. No. Or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. I think that's great and it's, you know, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I've got a few little issues with it, but nothing major. For me, it's a 4.5 out of 5, you know. But yeah, great film.
I don't think there are any cats.
There are no cats, no. Might be a few cat costumes. I didn't take note if there were, but no cats. So we will take back that rating. 0 out of 5. I'm kidding. So our next film, so this is, I guess, technically the only strictly non-LGBT film, but I guess it depends how you look at it.
It does.
So we've got Point Break, which is the 1991 version, not the god-awful remake from whenever the hell that came out. An American action crime thriller directed by Catherine Bigelow. So, yeah, I'm going to...
Starring Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves.
I mean, come on, if that's not a... I mean, that's a hot cast.
And Patrick Swayze is crazy hot in this movie.
He's got beautiful hair.
Oh, he's got this, like, bleached mullet, and he just looks sick. He looks so good. He's all tanned, and normally that's not even my thing, but just... It's Patrick Swayze and he just looks incredible.
I mean, yeah, Patrick Swayze. He always looked good. God rest his soul. Not that I believe in God. But that doesn't matter. Science rest his soul.
We miss you.
We miss you. But yeah, he always looked good. And you got a disconcertingly young Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, he's very baby-faced.
It's just weird because everyone always talks about how he doesn't age. And it's like, I can see that. But if you look at him now in like the John Wick films... But yeah, I'm like, look at that. That's a tasty snack right there with his beard and his longer hair.
Time to cook.
Yeah. So yeah, you've got a hot cast in this film.
Yes.
You got some sexy cast, and also the lead singer of Red Hot Chili Peppers. If you're into
Oh god, and he's the cringe, the cringe. Doesn't he get stabbed through the foot though?
He does. He gets shot
through
in the foot. Yeah.
That's what you get for such a terrible line delivery.
We've also got Gary Busey in the film, so takes away a bit of the sexiness, but no offence to Gary Busey. But yeah, so this film is basically, for anyone who may be unfamiliar with it, a very early 90s action movie where Patrick Swayze plays a guy called Body, I think is his name, as in Bodhi, like Bodhi Savata. Or Bodhi, yeah, something like Bodhi Savata. I can't remember, but anyway.
But he's part of like this gang of surfers who rob banks in order to fund their lifestyle of just surfing all day, every day.
They also like to claim that it's a capitalist statement, anti-capitalist statement, but it's totally not.
It's not.
Yeah. They just do it because it's extreme and they love the testosterone and the adrenaline of it. And Keanu Reeves is undercover agent Johnny Utah, not a code name,
no,
his actual name,
his actual
and he doesn't use a code name when he goes undercover.
Essentially, he goes undercover to become one of these surfers, and becomes one of these surfers more than he realised he would. And his relationship with Patrick Swayze is what makes this film potentially queer.
Yes.
Even though it's
super gay.
It is. It's super gay, but at the same time not gay enough for me.
Not gay enough for you.
Keanu has a relationship with a woman in this film that I just find really unnecessary and kind of... I'm not a huge fan of unnecessary romance in action films unless it's gay. If there'd been a romance between, like an active romance between him and Patrick Swayze, I would have been all for it. You know, like they're so close to each other at some point, so close to each other's faces, and I'm like, just kiss. But you don't get it.
My theory is that yes, there is this relationship between Keanu Reeves and what's her name, Tyler, played by Laurie Petty. But I have a feeling that was used to sneak this film past the straights.
I think you're probably right.
I have conspiracies about this film, in much the same way that Anne Hathaway's boobs are in Brokeback Mountain, so that, straight people had an excuse to go see it. It's like, this film is, I have a theory that Catherine Bigelow knew exactly what she was doing, because this is such a, quote unquote manly film. Yeah, it's full of,
we're men
doing manly things like playing football on the beach and all this kind of stuff. But I have a feeling she knew exactly what she was doing, and basically made this sort of and don't get me wrong, I believe she the action in this film is great. I'm a big action movie fan. And I think the action in this film is great. The foot chase in the middle is just an all-timer. What? We've got a cat trying to attack a microphone. The foot chase in the middle is an all-timer. All the surfing scenes and skydiving scenes, they're all filmed great.
Oh my god, Patrick Swayze in the skydiving scene is so good. Like, he's doing these flips and he looks so graceful and
dirty dancing in the sky.
Yes.
Dirty sky dancing. But yeah, so I have a feeling, Catherine Bigelow wanted to make this film about this spiritual, quote-unquote, connection between this man and another man, but it was obviously something more than that, Like, there's lots of references in the film to, where Tyler calls out macho-ness and testosterone. The final couple of action scenes are literally Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze grappling each other, really close to each other. The last one in the water, just rolling around in the water, grappling. There's a bit where they handcuff themselves to each other. I even noted, and maybe I'm looking way too much into this, but at the beginning of the film, when you get the main credits, Patrick Swayze's name comes out the right side of the screen. Keanu Reeves' name comes out the left side of the screen, and they intersect. And I'm like, that's already gay. That right there is the gayest credit sequence of all time. Yeah, I'm genuinely convinced Catherine Bigelow, because
I agree with you.
she didn't have the male gaze, you know,
Yeah.
the male eye behind it, and could actually look past that sort of stuff. I have a feeling that she deliberately made this film as gay as she possibly could, but also get it released by a major studio and get it, you know, past the straights, so that it
I
was
agree.
still a very good film. I feel in some ways as well it's like as much a satire on action cinema as it is appraisal of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like the thing with good parody is you need to love and hate something in equal measure. I don't think that Catherine Bigelow hates action films, because she's made a very good one. But I think, you know, there's a bit where Tyler said, like someone says about Tyler's character, who kind of gets kidnapped halfway through, and she's not really in the rest of the film, and a character says she's served her purpose. I'm like, I feel that that's a deliberate commentary on like the way women are used in action films, and stuff like that. So yeah, I have a feeling that Catherine Bigelow knew exactly what she was doing, but also wanted to make a genuinely kick-ass action film, which for me, it succeeds on all counts. You know, I love it as a sort of almost a parody of action cinema, but I love it as legitimate action cinema as well.
I do agree with you, but I want it to be more gay. Like, I love it. It's a great film, but it's like, it's just so, like, every time they're together, I'm like, come on, you guys, come on, you guys. And because it's constantly like that, wanting them to get together, but then they never really properly do, that's a little bit of a letdown for me. But there are so many squibs in this movie.
There's a lot of squibs.
And it gets
some good
major points for squibs.
Practical bloodshed, like when Red Hot Chili Peppers from the band Red Hot Chili Peppers gets his foot blown off. Lots of squib work.
Oh, and there's the house where they have the raid, and like everybody's shooting each other, and
that's where he gets his foot blown off, and then Keanu Reeves is fighting a guy outside, and the guy's trying to push his face into a lawnmower. It's so brutal. And I've seen this film so many times, and yet every time I'm like, oh, you know, kind of like, oh God, no, because it's done in such a good way. You know, it's edited perfectly. It's so tense. I mean, as you can probably tell, this is a film that I absolutely adore. For me, this is a 5-star film. What will be your rating?
It's my first not 5-star. It's a 4-star. It's a great film. It is great. God. I want it to be more gay. Not gay enough for me.
Not gay enough.
Make it gayer.
Not gay enough.
It's great,
out
but
of
make
10.
it gayer.
Make it gay. Would that be your notes? If you were the studio and you got this script handed in, you'd be like, make it gayer.
Yes.
In red ink on the side.
Yes. 100%. I want to see him kiss.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't think I think it would still be a 5-star film regardless for me, but yeah, that'd probably make it even better if it just went all out with it. But yeah. Cool. So our next film, and I think we're going to rile some people up here.
Oh, we are.
And we're very sorry if you are one of the people.
If this is one of your favourite films, I'm sorry. I'm glad you like it.
Yes, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad that you got something out of it, which
you.
it didn't do for us. So yes, our next film is But I'm a Cheerleader, a 1999 American satirical romantic comedy, directed and written by Jamie Babbitt. And
I was so excited to watch this.
Yeah.
I've been recommended this film so many times and haven't got around to watching it, so I was like, yes, it's Pride Month, we're going to watch it. And I found it to be such a letdown.
Yeah.
So the theme is that it's at conversion therapy, essentially.
Yeah, Natasha Lyonne plays Megan, who her family and everyone suspect her to be gay, so they send her off to this conversion therapy camp place. Not really a camp.
Which is that's the one thing that I do like about this film, thinking about the actual place, is the different colours. It's very colourful. It kind of reminded me of the houses in Edward Scissorhands. Yeah. The pastel pinks and the pastel blues. Yeah, it's got a fun aesthetic. That's one of the notes I wrote, that, you know, like, it's got this it's very sort of 50s inspired, very kitschy. Yeah. You know, like, like you say, it reminds me of like Edward Scissorhands, or like John Waters uses a lot of similar aesthetics, you know, so but I like that. it's just not very funny.
No.
For a comedy, how many times did we laugh?
I don't know. I think I laughed maybe once
maybe
or twice.
Maybe once. It just wasn't funny. And the thing is, immediately when I saw that it was a conversion therapy thing, I was immediately like kind of grossed out by it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you couldn't make a comedy with that, because you absolutely could, but I was like, oh god, I didn't think it was going to be about this.
Yeah.
And then it's not funny enough to get past the depressingness of poor kids having to go to conversion therapy.
Yeah. I think the thing is, which we just talked about a lot whilst watching it, if you're gonna use like something like conversion therapy, which is, you know, a genuinely pretty harrowing thing, you know, like especially dark, like, you know, if you've seen depressing films like Boy Erased, you know, it's brutal stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I think if you're gonna make, and I don't think, you know, I think you can make comedy out of any subject as long as you're, you know, not punching down, basically. And I don't necessarily feel this film is. I feel it is taking the piss out of conversion therapy, obviously.
Is.
But I feel like you either need to go one way or the other. You need to either make it the most ridiculous, unbelievable thing ever to show how ridiculous it is, or be really dark and vicious with how fucked up it is.
Yeah.
Like there's a South Park episode, for example, where Butters is sent to conversion therapy after his parents believe him to be bisexual, because I think Cartman did something to him in his sleep or something.
Oh, poor Butters.
Poor Butters.
Justice for Butters.
And yeah, it's filled with so many dark moments, like about, you know, suicides at the conversion camp and stuff like that. And it's funny because it's shocking, you know, it makes you gasp and go, oh my god, that's so fucked up, you know, and it's so truthful and honest, you know. I feel like you need to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
And this film kind of...
This film, it had, like, for instance, they got caught making out, and one of them was put into solitary in a...
Which is like a literal doghouse.
And I think... That's supposed to be a joke, but at the same time, that's what they actually do there. They put kids in solitary confinement, a hell of a lot worse. But it was just strange. I was like, is this supposed to be funny? Am I supposed to be laughing here?
Yeah, I think it's not ridiculous enough to be funny.
No.
It's too... Like there's
well, that's just like something that actually just happens. That's not a joke. Like I just don't...
I don't know. But yeah, I think overall, it's just the jokes aren't great. And I feel like I totally get this film has like a cult following, and I totally can see that, you know, for the time it came out, you know, as a relatively mainstream queer comedy, you know, so I can totally see that it probably spoke to a generation of people, you know, who grew up and were like, holy shit, I'm represented in this, you know, and stuff like that. But I think because we never saw it as teenagers,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
I mean, maybe if we had seen it as teenagers, maybe we still wouldn't like it. But yeah, I think for me now, it doesn't work because it's not very funny, and also it feels like the bare minimum of film was made at the end. It feels like the actual conflict of the film is Natasha Lyonne's character coming to terms with her sexuality and admitting her love for Claire Duvall's character.
And them saying, screw this, we're going to go and start our lives together. Yeah,
and it's like, there's some way, crazier shit going on behind there. And, you know, none of that's resolved. None of the stuff with the actual conversion camp or any of the other people at the conversion camp. None of that's resolved.
No.
There's RuPaul playing a ex-gay
I do love that we get some RuPaul. It's great to see RuPaul's face,
and he's funny in the role.
I wish he got a better character. I wish he was in a better film.
His character doesn't go anywhere. The arc doesn't go anywhere. It's literally just the joke is that he's a straight guy who likes staring at the very sexy groundskeeper at the camp and stuff like that. And it's just there's so many things where it just feels half baked to me.
Yeah, I think I would have liked this as a teenager.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why I would have liked it because as a queer teenager, I was always hunting for queer films.
Yeah.
And so I probably would have liked it based off of that alone.
Yeah.
But I agree with everything you just said. It's not the one. The ending is very disappointing. I initially was like kind of won over by it.
Yeah.
Because they are very cute.
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's
love
a cute ending.
They're going to go off and live with their new gay dads.
Yeah.
Essentially, there are don't they have a name?
What's that?
Their group. There's like a group of queer adults who want to help the kids in conversion therapy, and essentially a lot of these kids, if they choose to leave conversion therapy, are going to be kicked out by their parents, so they go and live with these two, essentially their new gay dads, in this house, which is very touching.
Yeah, it's sweet, but I just feel like
and it's
there's
very,
so much other stuff which isn't
you
resolved.
came up with a much better ending.
Yeah. Well, my the whole stuff with Natasha Lyonne and Clea Duvall and all that kind of stuff, that's all fine. But I feel like she should have also inspired the other people at the conversion camp to like stand up and be like, yeah, I'm gay or whatever, fuck this shit, fuck your stupid bullshit, like, I'm gay, that's who I am, I'm queer, I'm bi, whatever. And also that you've got the conversion camp leader who's played by, I think, what's her name? Kathy Moriarty. And
her son.
And her son, who is blatantly gay, yeah. And that's obviously one of the jokes of the film, is like how blatantly queer her son is, but she's not doing this therapy for him. Whenever he does like some gay shit, she's just like, please stop doing that. Yeah. And RuPaul spends a lot of the film staring at him as well and being like, oh,
So they should have got together.
They should have gotten together. So RuPaul realises that he's, actually he still is homosexual and it didn't change anything. And then that would rub Kathy Moriarty's character's nose in it, and
that would have been a much more satisfying ending.
It literally does feel like they forgot to film some final bits because it's such a rushed,
it's very
sudden ending.
Abrupt.
Yeah.
But it is very cute, her doing her little cheer, because she's a cheerleader, isn't she? So she does a cheer, which is really sweet.
I mean, it's cute. Natasha Lyonne is always good. I like her. The cast is good.
Yeah. It's
but,
just not funny.
And there's also one central thing that just makes no sense.
What?
Why? And this might sound mean, so I apologise in advance for.
God. Oh no!
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. If anything, it's praising someone. It's very nice.
Okay.
But why, if you were Natasha Lyonne in this camp, why would you fall for Clea Duvall when Melanie Lynskey is there?
I know. We said this.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
I'm sorry.
She's the one we.
I'm sorry, Clea Duvall fans. I know there are a lot of Clea Duvall fans.
Yeah, there's loads of people. I personally don't get it.
But Melanie Lynskey.
But yeah, I know she's a babe.
Yeah. Yeah, we love you, Melanie Lynskey.
Yeah, we do. If you ever listen to this.
Yeah, giving you a shout out.
You're welcome round anytime.
She liked one of my tweets one time. So.
I remember you said.
She liked one of my tweets, so therefore I know that she's probably listening to this. So.
I love her. I had a crush on her when I was like, I can't remember how old I was watching Detroit Rock City, maybe 12, and I saw her in it and I was like, oh my god, obsessed.
I discovered her on 2.5 Men, which is a terrible misogynistic shit show of a show. But I kept watching it because Melanie Lynskey was in it. So, and I was like, I don't know who this lady is, but I like her.
She's gorge. Absolutely gorge.
So yeah, so we give this film, so overall we're very happy that Melanie Lynskey is in this film, but we're also very disappointed at how underrepresented she is in the film.
Yeah, she's hardly in it at all.
Yeah, so I think we both actually gave this film initial ratings and then thought about it a bit and lowered our ratings.
Yeah,
so
we did.
We're really sorry, everybody.
The more I think about this film, the less I like it.
Yeah.
So I gave it 2.5 stars.
Yeah.
It would have been just 2, but the half star is because they're cute.
Yeah.
And I love the gay dads. The gay dads are great.
Yes,
they reminded me of us.
They were cool.
So.
I gave it 2 stars because, again, I initially gave it 2.5 stars, quite neutral on the fence, but I thought about it and I was like, I dislike the film more than I like it.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm going to put it down slightly in 2 stars. It's not a terrible film by any means. It's very short. It goes by quite quickly, but yeah, it just didn't work for us.
I wouldn't watch it again.
No.
I wouldn't watch it again.
It just didn't work for us.
And I wouldn't recommend it either. there are way better films, way better queer films.
Yeah.
Like some of the other ones we've talked about.
But you liked them.
What?
You liked the other films we talked about. You should have mentioned. You should have given them 5 stars or something.
You're a bully.
I am. I'm sorry. Can't help it. So, our next film. Let's move on to the next film.
Yes. Carol.
Carol, yes, which is 2015 British and American romantic period drama film. Sorry, I'm losing my voice because I've been talking for a long time.
Have a drink.
I am. I'm sipping, but yeah, I'm not used to talking this much. But yes, this is a romantic period drama directed by Todd Haynes. And yes, this film is great. Yeah, it's basically about Carol, played by Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
And what's her name? Therese, played by Rooney Mara. And I think it's pronounced Therese. Yeah, it's spelled Therese, but it's
Therese.
said Therese.
I love that name.
It's quite elegant. Quite an elegant name.
Essentially, Carol is going through a horrible divorce with a clearly abusive husband who is trying to use her sexuality against her so that she will not be able to see her child, which I found very difficult to watch.
Yeah.
It was very upsetting. But while this horrible time is going on in Carol's life, she meets Therese and they fall in love with each other and they go on a road trip to try and escape Carol's ex-husband. And I spent the whole film dreading, thinking this is going to have a horrible ending. Of course it is. And I had a point where my heart was aching.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in my chest, my heart was hurting because these two women who were so in love, and to think this is going to go horribly, and then it bloody didn't.
Yeah. It was a shock, especially after all the miserable, sort of sad ending LGBT films we had watched.
I was convinced it was going to be another one, and I didn't want to even give myself the idea of hope that they might end up together.
See, I started feeling hopeful because the film begins at a very random point. It just...
Yeah,
and it
does.
begins, like, at what is actually, like, close to the ending of the film, and then we go back in time and it starts from the beginning. I'm still not certain on why they began it at that point. I can't quite wrap my head around it.
I'm not against it.
I'm not against it, but I just couldn't quite figure out the purpose of it. But yes, it begins at this point. But when the film kept going past that point we'd already seen, that's when I started thinking, oh, I actually think this is going to have a nice ending. Because that I guess because that beginning bit implies the ending is just not going to be happy. But because it keeps going past that point, then it gets to a point where I was like, okay, no, I think this will actually be a happy, well, not a happy film, but have a happy ending at least. Yeah, ending. I mean, there's still lots of horrible, divorce shit in the film, custody stuff, I
mean, the way her ex-husband is with her is very upsetting to watch.
Yeah.
I would say that if you are triggered by domestic violence, not to go there. I mean, I do get triggered by domestic violence, but I did manage to get through it. I mean, there's not loads of it, but he's just
there's
so
no active violence,
angry
but
and
there's that.
So threatening,
Yeah.
and he just won't let her go.
And he does start off somewhat initially sympathetic, because you see, like, he's just like, I just want us to be together and all that kind of stuff, But it's like as he goes on and his behaviours become a bit more obsessive, and it just, it gets pretty...
the way he shows up
pretty
at
dark.
her ex-lover's house and won't let her shut the door and is very aggressive. That was very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
And he sends a private investigator after Carol on the road trip that she goes on, and gets this private investigator to film Carol and Therese sleeping together, and then is going to use this footage to prevent Carol from seeing her daughter, which is abhorrent.
Yeah.
Disgusting. The fact that there even was a morality clause is what it was under, that because she's queer she wouldn't be allowed to see her child.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. I mean, as a whole, I feel like the film isn't actively... Like, I think when you hear, 50s set gay drama, queer drama, you think it's going to be, like...
Depressing.
Largely about homophobia. And obviously that is an aspect of it. But I think a large part of the film is also, their love story, the love story between Carol and Therese. And, yeah, it's a genuinely very moving... quite beautiful love story between them.
And the sex scene is beautiful.
And yes, there is a sex scene which...
It's so romantic.
It's very erotic, but not in a way because you see, not in a way because it's two ladies making out. It's not in a way. It's erotic in a romantic, passionate way.
It's beautiful.
Because it feels so, just...
tender.
Charged and tender,
There's this... immense love between them.
Yeah.
The way they kiss each other, the way they touch each other, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's very tender, like you say.
Yeah, it is. The way they are together is just lovely.
I think that was like they were both likeable, Sometimes I worry when I see Rooney Mara in a film because I do like her as an actress, but she can be quite cold sometimes. And I get that's, sort of one of the things of many of the characters she plays. But in this, she was like a lot more... She seemed, they both had a playfulness to them,
Yeah.
And as the film goes along and gets more serious, there's more serious and more severity behind, instance in the films, then that does kind of go away slightly. But it begins the film, like you're already invested in them from the beginning, as soon as you've seen them together. I felt this, say, more than Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I felt it here immediately, whereas I struggled with that film to find a connection, so...
They are incredibly sweet.
Yeah.
And they have quite the age gap, I think, don't they? They have a bit of an age gap.
I didn't even think about that.
So I almost feel that there is almost like a slight motherliness to Carol's character. And the way that she takes care of Therese and wants the best for her. She buys her a fancy camera because Therese wants to be a photographer.
Yeah.
And of course, when they go on this road trip, Carol's paying for everything and taking care of everything.
Yeah.
And I love that. I just thought they were very just sweet and loving and natural together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they were. It was really good performances, it just felt very naturalistic
and it's a Christmas film.
But I do have one major issue with this film,
right?
And that is how the film looks.
It's the yellow.
It has this weird green yellow tint over it. I'm not sure if I'm assuming it was like done like in editing. I'm assuming it was some colour grading done to it because I've seen promotional stills from the film which are in a normal colour, naturally lit. But there's this weird green yellow lighting to everything, kind of sickly lighting.
Yeah, well I mentioned it at the beginning, didn't I? Because Therese is wearing a Santa hat.
Yeah.
And the white on the hat looks yellow. It looks like nicotine stained. It looks like some old man has worn it for years whilst chain smoking in his basement. And it's really unpleasant to look at, actually.
Yeah, I didn't get it. And I kind of thought for a while, like, is there some sort of... There are some scenes which are, like, lit a bit brighter, like when they're outside or they're driving and you see the sun shining down.
Yeah.
But like all interior scenes are like filmed...
on the snow and it's very snowy, isn't it?
But like all the interior scenes are filmed with this horrible tint. Well, they're not filmed with it because, like I say, I think it was done post-production. But yeah, and I was trying to figure out if there was a correlation. Like, is this trying to signify something? Is this for scenes that are sad and then scenes that are happier will be lit brighter? But no, I couldn't find any correlation, and I just couldn't wrap my head around why that was a decision made.
Yeah, I really don't know why they did that.
Yeah, and maybe there is some significance to it which we've totally missed.
Maybe. But if there has and you know it, let us know.
Yes, let us know. Because for me, it did... And I hate to let something small like that ruin a film. And it doesn't ruin the film. I think it's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
But it did stop it from being, like, an amazing, film for me. Like, in regards to the fact that I kind of just, like... A lot of this is unpleasant to look at.
Yeah.
And, you know, the shot compositions are nice, but there's just this horrible, sickly green. And
I agree with you about it, but for me, it doesn't detract from the film because the film's so good that I can kind of say, oh well, there are some scenes where they look a bit gross, but overall,
it looked kind of like a Saw film.
Oh god, it did at points. That sort of yellow and green.
I think that's the problem I had. I was looking at it and I was like, I'm thinking about Saw films right now, and I do not want to be thinking about Saw films right now.
I think I was far too invested in their relationship to care that much.
That's fair enough.
So for me, it was a 5-star.
Yeah, for me it was a 4.5 because I thought it was a fantastic, beautiful, genuinely romantic and film. But yeah, it's just I also thought, and I think it's the best Saw film in the franchise, but yeah, no, I couldn't quite get over it, I'm afraid, which I really hate. It's very annoying.
But, you know, it's what it is. If it detracts from it for you, then it detracts from it, you know? There have been other films that I've watched where it's like something little has just irked me.
Yeah.
And this, although I didn't like necessarily the way it looked, it didn't irk me enough for it to be a problem.
Yeah.
So we're on to our last film.
On to our last film.
Wait, did you give your star rating? Oh, yeah, you did.
I did.
4.5.
Yes. So yeah, our last film. We got there eventually. We talk far too much, but hopefully we've been enjoyable thus far. So our last film is actually one which has only just been released in UK cinemas.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably. Maybe not as many people have seen this film that we're going to be talking about, but maybe we can encourage some people to see it.
Yes, you should.
So finally we're talking about Supernova, which is not the sci-fi film from 2000 starring Alfred Woodard. It is in fact the 2020 British drama starring Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci, directed by Harry McQueen.
Another one that made me cry.
Yes, you cried again.
I cried a lot at this one. They were like us, and that got to me from the very beginning. The very beginning, you see them in bed together, and Colin Firth is spooning. I've forgotten his name.
Stanley Tucci.
Yeah. And he's got one leg out of the covers, and that's what you always do. And then the way they lovingly bicker with each other is adorable and very like us.
Yeah. So basically in this film you've got Colin Firth as Sam and Stanley Tucci as Tusker. And they are a couple, and basically Tusker has dementia. He's at the very beginning stages of it. Not very beginning, but
he's
like a couple of stages in. Yeah, it's a problem, but it's not something where he can't function.
Yeah, he can function.
He can mostly function.
He has difficulties, but he can function.
He can mostly function. So he has dementia. And Colin Firth is his partner, and they're on one final sort of road trip.
Yeah, for Colin Firth to go and do a concert because he plays piano.
Yeah. And so basically we just follow these two and their adventure. No, it's not really an adventure, but it's a very lovely, sweet, low-key film.
And sad.
And very sad.
I think the beginning parts, of their trip when they see their family, and yet there is a sadness to it because obviously they are struggling a bit.
Yeah.
Colin Firth is very worried.
Yes, Colin Firth does a good job of looking constantly,
constantly. Well, you can
concerned
see the
and
weight
trying
on
to swallow
shoulders.
it, but he just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see a weight on his shoulders. He looks like he's carrying the earth. Poor man. Yeah. And then his a lot less serious partner, who even though is struggling, still manages to be goofy and silly. I mean, they have to sleep when they sleep in the bed. So they go and stay at Colin Firth's sister's house, which was where he grew up. And what's it? I've forgotten his name again.
Tusker.
Tusker decides that they're going to sleep in his childhood bed, which is a single bed. And of course, there's the argument that I think every couple has, which is move over, I'm at the edge. Well, I'm at the edge. Well, I'm at the edge more. And then Colin Firth falling out of the bed, which was quite funny. It's just, they're adorable.
Yeah, it was a very authentic feeling relationship.
Yeah.
There was like so much chemistry. It was just the little things, you know. They were like, it felt like most of the scenes in the film they were bickering, but in a loving way. In this way where, you know,
in the way that you do when you've been together for a long, long time.
Exactly.
And the way they there's a point where Colin Firth kissed him on the head, and it was just so sweet.
Yeah.
They had so much chemistry.
They did, yeah. I was reading about it, and apparently Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci have actually been really good friends for like a couple of decades.
That makes sense.
So apparently for them to get this chemistry, it didn't actually require that much sort of preparation. It was just came natural to them.
I thought it was very sweet where you'd see them, because there was another point where you see them in the morning where they're still in bed, they're still half asleep. So there's been the one where we've seen one where they're lying next to each other, just like holding hands.
Yeah.
And it was so sweet.
Yeah.
They were so, oh God. And they have a party with all of their friends and family members, which
basically Tusker is set up to remind Colin Firth to remind Sam that there are people that love him, and you know, once Tusker is gone, he does have other people to keep living for, you know, because he's so sort of dead set on Tusker, you know, like, I'm going to be with you till the end. But Tusker doesn't want that. Yeah. Tusker wants to be in control of his own fate, you know. He wants to be able to get, before he gets to a stage where he can't function.
Yeah, so essentially it gets to a point where Colin Firth's character goes through his husband's stuff and finds a tape which is a suicide note, saying that he doesn't want to get any worse. He's got as bad as he wants to get, and he's ready to leave this world. And of course Colin Firth is angry and sad, and they have an argument, and it's very sad because you can see it from both sides. Yeah, I can see it from, if that was my partner, I would be exactly the same. I will look after you. Please don't do this. We'll make it work. We'll do this. You know, because you don't want to lose that person. Yeah. But at the same time, if you're losing who you are so much, and your quality of life is going down so much, why would you want to continue like that? So I understand why he would want to end things.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, no, it's... Yeah, both sides. I think that's the thing the film does well, is it makes you understand both sides so much, you know, and like... Yeah, and I really appreciated as well the way it dealt with dementia sort of more in the abstract. Like, we do see how it affects Tusker, but it's more about the impending... I'm gonna get worse. You know, it wasn't a film. I'm gonna
get worse and get worse and get worse until there's nothing left of me.
It wasn't about a film. It wasn't a film about a man going through dementia. It was about a man who has dementia and how he doesn't want it to get worse. I thought that was like quite smart, you know, because there's a lot. There's not a lot, but there are quite a few films,
where you see, you know, some of the early stages of dementia going through until they're very, very, very unwell and are no longer themselves. Yeah. And I mean, personally, I think I would be the same if I had dementia and I was losing who I was as a person. You'd get to, I mean, I think quite a lot of people would get to the point where they go, nope, this isn't for me. And it's a shame that option isn't out there for people readily.
Yeah, it's basically he has to... Hasn't he set up like the piano
concert on the internet, and the reason why he pushed his husband to do the piano concert was so that he would have an alibi, so that people wouldn't think that he was assisting his suicide.
Exactly,
because it's still illegal.
It's fucked up that, you know, that it is illegal, you know, that you can't do that. But yeah, I mean, it's a very thoughtful, sort of tender film, you know. Yeah, which we both really, really liked. Yeah,
I would recommend it to anyone and everyone. Just be prepared to cry a lot.
I didn't cry, but to be fair, I am a monster
You have
who
a
doesn't
heart
really
stain.
cry at anything. So, I mean, I do cry at things, but not often. So,
I'm a big crier,
yeah.
as you can probably
We
tell.
love a good cry.
But it was so beautiful, and it's another one where I just love their relationship.
Yeah.
I could just watch them two together, just ragging on each other
Yeah.
for hours.
Yeah, exactly. They were in a weird way fun to watch.
They were.
And that's the thing as well. It's a funny film. There's a lot of humour to it.
Yeah.
It's not a miserable slog.
No.
It potentially could sound like a miserable slog,
Yeah,
but there's
really
a lot
not.
of humour. You know, like Stanley Tucci's character is just delightful. You know,
He is. Yeah.
like he's just got this irrepressible spirit. Even when he's struggling with struggling buttoning up a shirt, he's still making jokes about it and stuff like that. And I think that's what makes the film as well. Like, it's a very warm film ultimately.
Yeah,
you know, it is sad in places,
and even
obviously.
in the end, it's sad, but also it's not, because you know that because he's, you know, ending his life, he's not going to suffer.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to suffer.
Yeah. I thought the ending was like quite. I found the ending more beautiful than sad in a way, because it's like they've come to this decision. They've realised this is the best course of action.
Yeah.
You know, and you can still do this and love each other. You know, it doesn't mean that you don't love him because you're letting him do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you have to love someone to let them do.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was just really good performances. I mean, for me, it's not like a perfect film. You know, I think for me, I kind of felt a little bit by the end. I was like, oh, okay, that was it. It ended. But I still really enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's,
And again, maybe that's a testament to the characters and how I wanted to, keep spending time with them.
Yeah, that's true.
But I did feel a little bit at the end like, oh, okay. All right.
I was sad when it ended.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, I wanted to spend more time with them.
Mm.
But I did like the ending.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful and sad.
Yeah.
But more beautiful than sad.
Yeah. But it's a very good film. I give it a 4 out of 5.
It's
personally.
a 5 for me.
It's another 5 for you.
Right, I must say, although I've given a lot of 5 stars in this episode, this is not normally the case.
No. Usually you're a lot harder to please with films.
But I think there's something about queer cinema that, as a queer person, makes me feel at home in a way that other films don't.
Mm.
And so there are a lot of queer films that are 5-star films for me.
Yeah.
Not just because the films are amazing, they are, but also because they give me that sense of like solidarity.
They speak to you on like a personal level.
Yeah, they do.
I would. That did remind me as well. Actually, a thing about Supernova as well is it's not actually ever really about the fact that they're gay. They just are gay.
Yeah,
they just are a
they're
gay
just
couple.
a couple.
But it's never really. I think there's like a joke about Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, there is. Yeah, section.
Having section whatever.
I can't remember which section it was, but
Yeah.
she made it so you couldn't talk about
Yeah.
queer relationships in school.
There's
and
like a
bullying
joke
and
about
stuff.
that, and I think that's about it
Fuck
as
you,
far
Margaret
as
Thatcher.
yeah. But I think that's about it as far as sort of references to it. And again, I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that's kind of, it's nice to see a representation which is just casual. It just is, because straight
They
couples
just are
in films,
a
they're
couple.
not talking about their problems as straight people.
Yeah.
Obviously they don't really have problems as straight people. So I totally understand that. But yeah, it's nice that we've got this film where it's just a very casual, it's not about them being gay, they just are gay.
Yeah.
But again, nothing wrong with obviously films where it is about,
No, we love a bit of
yeah,
both.
because we love Brokeback Mountain.
Give us low key and high key. We're here for it all.
And Loki, bisexual Loki.
Yes, which was a recent development in the TV show. If you guys are watching that, don't know if you
not,
are. If
spoiler
not, you
alert.
should be.
No, it's not really a spoiler. But so yeah, I think also I did forget about our gimmick over the last few films. Yeah, there were no cats in the last few films, although Supernova...
That's probably why we forgot about it.
Yeah, I did write notes, but it's not easy to remember when there aren't cats. We think about cats a lot.
We do.
Yeah, Supernova doesn't have any cats, but it does have a very beautiful dog called Ruby.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
She's lovely.
So, dog people.
There's a dog.
There's a dog for you in Supernova. So, yeah.
Are you going to do the ranking?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a little ranky rank. Go through.
And then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so I think you will be unsurprised to learn. So, yeah, if I rank the films, then a lot of them are actually in the same position because we had a lot of films we rated similarly. So in the last place is at 5th is, as you'll be not surprised to learn, But I'm a Cheerleader, which we gave an overall of 4.5 out of 10. Ooh. Very sorry, But I'm a Cheerleader fans, but you can tell us why we're wrong, and we respect that. We respect that. You get it, we don't.
We still love you.
In joint 4th place, we have Paris is Burning and Portrait of a Lady on Fire, both with 8 out of 10. That 8 out of 10 is my fault on both those counts.
Still a solid score.
Still good scores, yeah, good scores. Then we've got 2 films in our joint 3rd place, Point Break and Supernova, which both had 9 out of 10. I accidentally wrote 9 out of 5. That doesn't make sense. That's impossible. I would rate Point Break 9 out of 5 if possible. And then in 2nd place, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and Carol tied for 2nd place, both with 9.5 out of 10. And then finally, we've got 3 joint winners. Brokeback Mountain, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and Let the Right One In, all of which we gave a cumulative 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Yes. So,
fabulous.
Hopefully you enjoyed us nattering on. We have talked for a long time. We always talk longer than planned.
Yeah, so. We do. We're terrible once we get going, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yes.
And remember to be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes. Thank you.
Thanks.